was just too much, and I was in so much pain, and I had some extra pain medicine that day, and I wasn't feeling well, so I went to the bathroom and I died on the toilet. Death is a very individualized process. Not everybody ends up in the same place. I feel like I saw the fabric of our known universe, and I realized my life is broken. And what I'm doing to fix my life is killing me. What I have then been shown and seen is that we actually have the ability to regenerate ourselves. There's nothing special about me. You don't have to die to access these skills. When you ask for something, you can receive it. And when you ask for guidance from your highest self, from divine consciousness, you will start to get that direct experience. That's the magic of life. When people hear my story, oftentimes they're sort of overwhelmed by the amount of traumatic experiences and events that I've been through in my life. You know, when you look at me, I think from the outside, people often conjure up a picture of what they think a person is, right? And I think I invoke certain imagery for people. But the truth is that, you know, I grew up in a very Christian home and, you know, had pretty normal parents who got divorced. And at an early age, I was such an independent person. And I got kind of thrown into this living situation that I didn't really care for. So I ran away from home when I was 14 years of age. And I, you know, started living on my own at 14, right? I mean, that's an early start. I dropped out of high school at 15 and I started working full time. And, you know, through that process, so many things happened, but I ended up in a corporate job at a top, you know, Fortune 100 company without a college degree. I'm an autodidact, so that means I have to teach myself. And so I would read and learn, and I was never questioned on if I went to college or not. People just always assumed that I had been college educated. And so I got the job, I moved into corporate. And through that journey, I was actually kidnapped by a manager. And my life was threatened. He ultimately ended up going to jail. And that was so traumatic for me as a very young woman. I was 21 at the time. And I didn't know, I know, right? I didn't know how to deal with it. And I was sort of always taught like how you deal with trauma in my family is number one, you don't talk about it with anybody. Right. Number two, right. Whatever you do, don't tell anybody there's stuff going on in your life. Right. We want to appear.
Yeah. The shame aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. And then how you deal with the trauma is you drink and you smoke and you work harder. You work harder and you work more hours and you don't have to deal with anything.
To try and put it behind you. Yeah.
Yeah. Never look back, right? And my father had a saying, and I really love and respect my dad. He's a lot of the reason why I am who I am today. But he would say, you know, you can have a choice. You can laugh about it or you can cry about it. And I choose to laugh. But that framework taught me unconsciously to never feel your emotions, right? Never feel your feelings, which is tough when you have some trauma. And, you know, what I learned on the other side, which I know we'll talk about, is being a human being is inherently traumatic. And I believe we're actually here to sort of deal with a lot of the traumas that our past generations haven't dealt with. So all of a sudden I'm in corporate, I'm getting promoted up the corporate ladder, have this trauma that happened at corporate, and had to face that every day, going to work, got promoted again into the gray cubicle of death, right? And you guys know, you might be sitting right now in the gray cubicle of death, typing away, trying to look like you're doing something.
Yeah.
Your gray cubicle.
Look busy. Come on now.
Right? Look busy. work harder, look busy. And it was just a soul sucking job at corporate. You know, I wanted to climb the ladder. I wanted the success. Here I was, a high school dropout, and I was forging my way up the corporate ladder in this Fortune 100 company. Like if I said the name, everybody knows the name of this company. It was a technology company. And so I just thought, like, I have to just work harder and go forward. And I ended up getting real sick at an event that I was helping to run. And that was the tipping point for me. The stress, I was smoking 2 packs a day of cigarettes. I was drinking a nice bottle of Cabernet every day. I was powering my way through work with a pot of coffee at least. And then when I was done with a pot of coffee, I would start the Mountain Dew, because there's nothing like the dew to keep you going. So that was my foray into the world of being sick. And once I started to get sick, and this is something people don't talk about a lot, but it was really true for me. I liked going to the doctor. I actually liked getting medication. It was that addict in me that I was like, oh yeah, I'm getting attention. I can pause and
I was going
relax.
to
Oh, they're
ask, is that
giving.
about attention? Sorry, please continue. I've interrupted.
I
Sorry.
totally think it was. It was like I needed the attention. Like I was so focused on serving and climbing and getting up the ladder and going, going, going and doing that I didn't feel like I had any room for me. And so here I am at the doctor's office, attention on me, focus on me, right? Oh, here's this pill. It's going to help you feel better, right? And I loved it. And at some point, I remember like feeling excited about my next diagnosis. Like I just wanted to figure out what was going on with me. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, at first I was like, please let them find cancer. Please let them find cancer because I felt so bad. But then once I got the MS diagnosis, I'm like, yes, I am sick after all, and I felt so gratified and I kept chasing more diagnoses and chasing more pills. And
Did it also
yeah,
give you more time and space outside of the corporate climb to be present with yourself? Like, was there some sort of that as well, which was like, I can finally slow down to be with me without having to have all this drive to achieve? Is that an element of there as well?
it's a great question. And I wish I could say yes. What it did is I was so afraid of being with myself that a lot of the drugs they were prescribing were pain pills, right? And I'm talking hardcore pain pills to manage the pain that was in my body, right? And it's easier for your body to express physical pain than it is for your body to express emotional pain. It's easier for the
Can you
psyche
just
to
repeat
deal.
that? Sorry. Can you just repeat that? Can you just repeat that a couple of times for us? Because that is something we can just race past,
Mhm.
but it's actually
Yeah.
extremely profound. Can you just share that?
Yeah.
It's easier for our body to experience. Sorry, I'll let you share it a couple of times over and then really just unpack that before you dive back into where you're going. Sorry for interrupting so much. That's just so rich. Sorry.
I love it. I'm so glad you did because it is profound. It is easier for your body to express physical pain than for you to deal with the trauma and the crap living inside your cells and your DNA. And so we then, have that physical pain, but it starts way up here, starts in the energetic field, and we don't deal with it in the energetic field. And then it comes down into the body. And if we don't deal with it, it comes down and then expresses itself as physical pain. And it's an attempt for your soul, right, to get you to deal with the energy upstream from there and the emotions, right? Because we have our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, and then our spiritual body. And it's an attempt from your soul to get you to go into all of that and untwist it. But especially in Western society, we just got trained out of ever believing that physical pain had anything to do with anything else besides that particular organ. Oh, if
Energetics
it's
or metaphysics or emotions or anything. Yeah.
totally. So we have billions of people walking around in physical pain, in physical distress, not understanding the origins and the nature of where that comes from. And so just like myself, they're chasing solutions, right? They're chasing. And so when you asked me, did it give me a chance to get a timeout to be with myself? I didn't know at the time how to be with myself. All I really wanted was to go unconscious, like, and to check out because I had no understanding of how to check in. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think this is so real for so many people. Like, it's easier to go and watch an episode of whatever the latest TV show is on TV than it is to tune in and go, why am I feeling stressed? What's actually going on with me today? Like, why do I feel sad today?
Yeah, the metaphor that's coming to mind is like, if you don't have a sense of where home is, you'll just keep walking to your feet, sort of the skin falls off your feet. Sorry, interrupted again.
No, that's so perfect. And I did not know where home was, and I had no idea how to find it. I just knew that life was so stressful, and these drugs helped me to not feel. Right? My body's trying to get me to feel, it's trying to do its best to get me to feel the pain that's underneath the hood. And I'm trying my best to not feel. So that led to more and more drugs, the stack, right? Of now we're chasing symptoms, and now we're chasing symptoms of side effects. I did get diagnosed with a couple of autoimmune diseases, all of which I think came from post-viral syndrome. I think there's something really big happening on the planet right now, especially as it is relating to that. In fact, I'm now going through another round of all of the health journey. I've been fighting for what's felt like my life for the last couple years since getting the situation. I'll say it that way. Since getting this situation in 2022, I didn't get the situation until 2022. But once I got it, that reactivated all of the autoimmune stuff. It reactivated everything for me. So I've then now been having to go back and deal with and heal through some of the old traumas that I hadn't gone through consciously before. And I really do think that's what our life is about, is to consciously heal the trauma embedded in our DNA, in our systems, so that, if you think about creating a new human, if you think about creating something new, well, if you're trying to bake a cake and you've got rancid flour and you keep using that rancid flour to bake the cake, even if you try a new recipe, that cake's still going to be rancid. And I'm not trying to call human beings rancid, but let's face it, we've got a lot of junk in our trunk that nobody's ever dealt with. Our parents didn't deal with it. Many of them didn't walk on a healing journey. So now we're trying to our souls are leading us through this journey of going into some of these pieces, and it is hard and it is tough. So to back up into my story, I don't want to digress too much into the future, but yeah, I was in the gray cubicle of death. I wasn't doing well. I was on all of this medication, and I finally sought out a doctor, and this doctor was like, I know what can fix you. We got to kill everything inside of you. It's basically this doctor's tactic. And so I got a PICC line installed, that PICC line that goes into your heart, and they deliver IV medication. It's kind of a chemotherapy antibiotic equivalent, along with other drugs like Benadryl and Xanax and Valium and all of the things, right? And one
Super
day it was
involved. Yeah, invasive. Sorry.
Super invasive, super involved. It was all day long at the doctor's clinic, right? Like 7 hours of infusing a day, every day for basically 3 years. And during one of those days, it was just too much for me. It was too much drugs. It was too much infusion. It was too much everything. And, one night at home, while I was at home, I was married at the time, was just too much, and I was in so much pain, and I had some extra pain medicine that day, and I wasn't feeling well, so I went to the bathroom, like you do when you don't feel well, you go to the bathroom, and I died on the toilet. And back down on earth, that was a very hard thing for my husband to witness and experience, but for me, floating around and getting to explore the cosmos, it was one of the most expansive, incredible things. And I call it my full reboot. It helped me fully reboot myself. Now, you got to remember, for people who haven't heard my story, I was 240 pounds at the time. So think of me, 240
And you
pounds,
just overdosed.
just
Yeah.
massively overdosed. I wore a PICC line. I had to wear diapers because I couldn't control my bladder and things like that. I used a walker to get around. So, on the other side, I got to encounter this version of myself that was a light body, I always say, it was the most physical thing I've ever done without a body.
I love it when you say that. I don't know why, but it really just strikes a chord. Please, sorry. I've interrupted again.
It's true though. Like I didn't have a physical body, but it was very physical. And now what I realize is I had a light body, right? I had a light vehicle. And it's sort of the equivalent. I think dying, I always say this to people, I think dying sort of like trading in your Ford for a rocket. Like you're still driving, like if you drive your Ford right now, you're driving your Ford. And sometimes you're like, well, I'm done with my Ford. Let me get a rocket ship. And it's the equivalent of that. You just change vehicles. That's the only thing that happens when you die. You just change the vehicle. Like now you're sitting behind the eyes driving this one, sort of Ford like, right? They run good some of the times, but sometimes you find them on the road dead, right? It's the acronym for Ford, found on road dead. So on the other side, it was like this light body. It was I got to merge with the consciousness of all things. And for me, that was such a profound experience of being able to experience everything in the universe all at once. Do you know what I'm saying? And like having the capacity to experience everything all at once and stretch my consciousness into places that I wanted to explore more of. And it was a very stretchy. Are you old enough to remember the Stretch Armstrong doll? Do you remember Stretch Armstrong? Some of your audience will. Yeah. And it just felt like this elastic, like stretching of your consciousness. It was so expansive and amazing. And it was pure, like light stretching. It was absolutely incredible. And, some of the things like I saw, you can't even really describe them because they're not in a human framework. And I think that's a big thing to remember is here on planet Earth, we have such a limited framework of how we think things operate based on what we've been
Yeah.
trained and
Sometimes you call it
told.
grade 3. Yeah.
Yes, I call it grade 3 a lot. It's third grade. And there's much higher grades. Just like in the human world, there's so many more grades that we can move through. And this is one of the basic ones. Although I had someone say to me, wouldn't you say that then we're true masters because we have to learn such hard lessons? And I thought that was a really good point, because we are, although they're basic, we're learning hard lessons down here. And so I think to that person's point, it is a mastery if you choose to enroll and take it on as such. And when you do decide to take responsibility for everything in your life, which is one of the things I learned up there, you have to take responsibility for everything in your life. and when you do that, you can heal. I mean, it sounds so stupid simple, but when you take responsibility for everything in your life, you will heal.
Yeah, there's a big part of your work that speaks to transcending the victimhood mentality. And we will get into that. Can you take us back to the other side? Because as you were describing the Stretch Armstrong experience, like you're downloading information or your access, I don't even know how to use the right word, you're information from multiple spaces and places all happening simultaneously at the same time. And yet you're fully present to them. And they're completely enriching your being. And also then, yeah, sorry, I've got so many questions about that space. Maybe you can speak to that and then I'll ask my next question later. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love your question about, was it a download? Was it an upload? Like, how did that happen? Again, it's just like plugging into the most bliss and joy and love and expansion that you can imagine. And the sense of freedom that you feel without having that body is like this huge, I recall it as this huge relief. Like, wow, I'm free. It felt like a birth. It felt like a release. It's like when you're dying, it's like you go from this womb into another world almost. And accessing that information, what it felt like is it felt like I was one with God consciousness or universal consciousness or divine consciousness. It just felt like, for me personally, I completely left the Alysa identity. And I, at one point, was no longer Alysa. I was the all, right? I was a part of the all that is. I wasn't separated from anything, and everything that I went into felt as an extension of me. And one of the things I remember feeling up there was, and I say up there, but it's relative, right? Out there, away from the body. One of the things I remember feeling up there was when I was exploring into all these experiences, I had sort of the feeling of wanting people to know and wanting things to know that I was expressing through them. Like it was God consciousness behind the scenes. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Like I had this desire for people to bring through that God consciousness and have an awareness that there was this God consciousness connection.
One of my deepest fascinations is that we are the universe looking in on ourselves. And I find myself just remarking upon this again and again, even from a very 3D sense. And then not being able to deduce much from a 3D space, but at the very least being able to elicit that my curiosity about myself is somewhat sacred. And that's kind of what I'm hearing from you as well, from like the top down version instead of the bottom up version, which is God consciousness trying to experience itself as
Yes.
God consciousness. I've got so many questions around the purpose of life from there, but before we digress into an even bigger tunnel, I'll let you finish what you're just sharing. Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, but to piggyback on what you said it so beautifully that it's God consciousness wanting to experience itself as itself and get that feedback loop going. And for me, that's the magic of life. That's when life gets good and yummy and you're in that magic and miracle zone when you find as many moments as you can and you are remembering that you are God in a body or divine in a body, whatever you want to call it, and that consciousness is looking out and through your eyes, and that everything you're seeing, whether you like it or agree with it or even are diametrically opposed to it or not, is also God consciousness. And the stuff that you don't like is literally God consciousness that hasn't woken up to itself.
Profound. Okay, so you're over on the other side and you're experiencing, mind you, how long are you over on the other side for? Because this sounds like this sounds like lifetimes worth of experiences that you're over there for. How long is this
Totally.
actually going on in 3D reality time? Back to, sorry, just for a moment, if we can just shrink back to the feels like just the overcoat that is Alyssa, the body sitting on the toilet of me. Sorry to be so crude. But how
Totally.
long is that going on and yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have a great way of knowing. I suspect about 10 minutes or so. My husband, when he found me, my lips were blue, my nails were blue. So I had started the bluing process, right? Of no oxygen in the body. But it's hard to really know, it really is hard to know. What I will say is, there's no such thing as time. We experience time here, but on the other side, everything is happening all at once. All the timelines, all the worlds, all the past lives, all the present lives, all the future lives are happening in the now time, which is real important if you can get your brain to go there. If you're having health issues, if you're having relationship issues, or spiritual issues, you can draw on the stuff that's happening to your soul fragment in other past, I call them concurrent lives, right? Because I don't see it as past and future. I call them concurrence. So you can draw on your energy and tune into what might be happening in other concurrent lives and then seek to heal it in this moment. Set your intention and energy to heal it throughout all time, space, dimension, and reality, which is I talk about a lot in my programs. Like, we're going to heal it across all time, space, dimension, and reality. We're not just going to heal it here, because that's the lie of our world that people are so bought into, because they've been told this lie so much, that you are just here and that you don't exist outside of here. Well, I'm here to tell you, you exist outside of here, and there's many versions of you existing. And if you can just get that piece of, okay, I'm dealing with something, but I'm also probably dealing with this in other places, and I'm going to set my intention to heal all of that across all time, space, dimension, and realities, then you have this profound and expansive healing that actually takes hold, right? It actually takes hold. So I think for me, that's one of the big pieces about going to the other side, is realizing that we are so having this multi-dimensional experience. And as you wake up in consciousness in this life, you probably heard of the twin flame concept, but you will have the understanding that all these ones are your twin flame, right? All of this 7 or 8 billion people are your twin flame. Everyone, right? And some of them are a little more closer to you than others, but every single being aspect is you projected outwards. And then as you start to integrate that, and you set your intention to start to integrate from all, it's like this Herkimer diamond, right? It has so many different facets and aspects of it, right? And so as you meet this facet of yourself, you heal that. And as you meet this facet, you start to meet these different facets and aspects of the self and your consciousness. And then you start to heal and bring all of that back together. And then you loop that feedback loop back up to divine consciousness, and you're expanding consciousness, you're integrating consciousness. And that for me on the other side was the biggest piece, is that looping the consciousness. Because if you think about how you expand something, you loop it back, right? You're like, if you want to expand a ball of yarn, you loop it, right? And you're going to make a bigger ball and a bigger ball and a bigger ball. And that's how that consciousness it appeared to me, like looping back the consciousness pieces and growing, expanding consciousness, which is what I believe is the point of all this, expanding consciousness,
Hey there, guys. Just wanted to tune in at this remarkable point in the podcast. It is getting quite opening, isn't it, in terms of understanding whoa, the nature of the other side. Like, this is very remarkable in my humble opinion. I'm learning so much. I'd love to hear from you what you're taking away from this podcast at this point, having learnt about what the other side is like. What seems intuitive to you? What have you learnt? Does this line up with some of your expectations, some of your ideologies? What are your thoughts on the process around the other side? Please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Without too much further ado, today's episode. It's really interesting because as you're describing that, I can't help but visualize a toroidal energy field with the loops going
Totally.
over and over. One of the other fascinating pieces in there for me, so many, well, one of the others, let's just is also that you found that, because in the Bible they say in the beginning there was the Word, and so there is this extreme reverence around sound, and rightfully so. I'm not trying to discount that at all through your teachings. I'm not saying you've said anything other than that, but also, you know, in the Hindu tradition we've got Om as the seed mantra, which is almost like, you know, this illusion of Maya that we've got. And Om is the whir of the projector that is pushing the illusion into being, you know. And if you really want to touch back in the sacred, just listen back to the mechanical whir of what's projecting the images forward, and just that's Om, and you can just, you know, remember, you know, the profundity of that. Yet you found in, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but maybe you can explain this, that light actually preceded sound. Can you describe that? And then also tumble down the rabbit hole, or take me down the rabbit hole with you in terms of sacred geometry and how that all packs into matter as we see it?
Yeah. So how I experienced it on the other side, and I say it preceded sound, it just how it occurred to me. But when I feel like I saw the fabric of our known universe, and it was a light and then a sound, but they're sort of they travel together, right? They're traveling on this frequency, and then it starts to come down and form that sacred geometry, right? And all different types of sacred geometry, and the sound infusing and the light infusing down, 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 out, 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 right? And then forming gases, forming matter, forming density as it goes out, out, down, up, right? But it was that piece of seeing, and I want to also say, and this is really hard to describe the indescribable, so bear with me. As I saw our known universe, it really was more like on a flat plane with all, like, I saw all the stars and all the things, but it was more of like a flat plane where it would like dip in where the star was and dip in where this solar system was. So it's like a thing like this. So all this light and sound is coming down, informing and infusing this flat plane, this flat band of our known solar system, our known universe. And there were so many others, right? So it felt very grid structure almost to look at it.
Wow. And so everything is built upon sound and light, is what I'm hearing from a really large scale. And then it almost seems like when we've collected that information, a certain part of the frequency, we see 3D matter in reality and are experiencing it as such. Just
Yeah,
a question
it collects
around.
that. Oh yeah.
Sorry, please continue. Yep.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah. And so if you look at the subatomic particles, right, that are here that we cannot see, that light and sound hits those subatomic particles and starts to push them, mash them, send them places, infuse gaseous states, right? It actually, but it, on the other side, it also occurs as a flat plane that's being created. So, you know, I wasn't out there long enough to really understand the whole thing. I do want to say, like, there's so much to that I know I
It's
could have
probably
gone,
infinite, right?
oh, right. And what I feel like is that, and I toss this around in my mind a lot. Like, I feel like I probably went into the God consciousness of our universe. And I tend to wonder, are there other God consciousnesses of other multiverses? Or is it, do you know what I'm saying? Like, how deep does the rabbit hole go? Or is it still the one? I don't
You've
know. And
just
I
blown
guess it
my
probably
mind.
is. Right? Do you know what I'm saying though? Like,
Yeah.
how many? So it was a really interesting experience because it felt like an infusion of light and sound, but also computer programming, like a program or some, just how I saw it and by the way, I didn't have eyes up there. Right? So
And
it's come.
you didn't have a lot of math before you went up there either. And then you're over there and you're like talking quantum physics fluently.
Mhm. Right. And I remember, that's one thing I remember, like coming back the next day after my near death experience. I'm like, let me keep the math, because I always sucked at math. And I'm just like, let me be able to keep doing these like advanced, and I completely lost it because I didn't have, and that's the thing about a near death experience. I didn't have the framework to keep it, I was able to keep a lot of stuff, but that's one that I just couldn't hold.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wonders, when you were mentioning, like, there's the God of this universe, and there's potentially how deep does the rabbit hole go with multiple gods across multiple universes, and it's like, then there must be a super God. It's just, maybe it's very masculine and phallic of me to try and like, there must be a supreme entity. It's like, just relax, Amrit. It's just an
I
exploration.
love it. I
But it's
love it.
so fascinating, so fascinating. Anything else that you feel, because I do want to bring us back into your body at some point
Yeah.
in this conversation, and describe, but is there anything else about the other side that you really want to remark upon, before we dive back into your body?
Yeah. I think one of the things that happened for me was that after this expansive experience, I then got pulled or excited to go into this other experience. And I ended up in the astral plane of this world. And had I chosen to stay there, I think I would have been in the astral plane, which is where I think a lot of people go after they pass away. They might think it's heaven or they might think it's hell, but it is a very healing place. What I feel like now is that when we die, the more conscious we can be as we do it, and the more we can set our intention to merge back with God or universe or whatever, versus just like this not conscious dying process. Like, I believe that the whole goal is for us to wake up and be conscious, and we can be conscious every day in our body, but also bring consciousness into that death process. I feel like that's a real positive thing. And you basically go to where you're aligned with. And I wasn't necessarily aligned with keeping that God consciousness. I will also say, I feel that death is a very individualized process. It's one that's designed to make you feel very safe and supported. And not everybody ends up in the same place. We have to remember, just like our world, there's millions of cities that you could go to if you decided to travel tomorrow. And when you pass out of this body, there's trillions and trillions and trillions of places you could decide to go if you passed out of the body. It's not a given that you're going to come back here. Although if you live a certain type of life, it is more of a given that you have to repeat that third grade, right? We repeat the grade until we pass the test. And I don't like to think of this in terms of tests, but it's more like when you trade your Ford in for the rocket ship, are you capable of driving the rocket ship? Can you use it well up there? And so you've got to be able to master some physical things. And some of the mastery levels we're learning here are, can you master your physical body? Can you master the mental body and the emotional body? And if you cannot have mastery over those three things, you get to come back here and gain mastery until you do.
Hey, your Inspired Tribe. I want to take a quick sec. I wanted to share something today with you that is really dear to my heart, and it's actually what keeps the entire ecosystem around the Inspired Evolution thriving, my one-on-one coaching. So it's basically coaching that helps you live a spiritually aligned life. I coach people from all different types of walks of life. These people are leaders and they're looking to have an incredible spiritual impact in the lives that they're leading for themselves, and then also lead in alignment to their values. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. Here's a few people that have also transformed through my coaching, and here's what they have to say.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines. And
he's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing.
Then my corporate banking job wasn't really doing it.
You feel like you're not making progress towards your goals.
And Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
I'm more in control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate because you won't be disappointed.
As you guys can see, there's a lot of people all over the world from all these different corners experiencing incredible transformations. I don't think, if I can say humbly myself, that there is anything quite like this somewhere else online. Most people that, have channels that, grow and grow and grow don't really focus on one-to-one offerings. I have just found that it is the most profound space where you can bring yourself in a private container and really just share what's going on for yourself. And if you want to book in for that call with me, touch base, it's www.amrit.coach/life. That's www.amrit.coach/life. There is a link in the show notes below to book in that call. And yeah, if you want to take your journey further, if you want to dive in deeper, and you really want to live a spiritually aligned life, if it's for you, please do check it out. And without too much further ado, once again, for your spirit, for yourself, today's podcast. I find that so profound on so many levels, especially the part where you describe that we sort of like are an energetic match for where we end up on the other side based on the work that we've done here in this lifetime, which then sort of pays homage to all the traditions and all the rituals that everybody's been carving out for eons, I will say, to sort of, because I think we're in an age now where we sort of question the use of rituals and those, like our practices to some degree, because we're so, I don't say entrapped in the mind, but the mind has this very reasoning-based sort of logic, and in that it sort of needs a real, it looks for something quite solidified to sort of anchor itself upon, and a lot of this conversation has been to soften that. But then, yeah, just like, if you're Hindu, you sort of see potentially, those energetics sort of carrying you over to the other side. But if you're Sikh by faith, you sort of see that energetic carrying you over to the other side and potentially where you land. And if you're Christian, Muslim, so on and so forth, like your death experience is tailored to you. And interestingly, when you tune into other people's near-death experiences, there's like, sometimes there's a tunnel of light. Sometimes there's a life review, but you didn't have that. Is that because of the nature of the way that you transitioned over?
Yeah, I tend to think that a couple of things. One, didn't have any deceased loved ones to meet me on the other side. And so that wasn't a part of my belief structure. And while I was raised a Christian, I disidentified with that way of thinking when I went to Thailand when I was 12. And I realized, guess what? There's fabulous people that don't believe in Jesus as their savior, and they're still fabulous people. So my Christianity bubble crumbled a little bit for me, and I became more of an all encompassing, like everybody's is right for them. It's the exact right tool for them. So I think for me, I believed in the universe, and I think the universe designed a death experience for that. In terms of the life review, I think I probably would have gotten there, but I believe because I died of a drug overdose, I think that there's other things involved when you die, and there's drugs involved. I think that you get a different set of circumstances. And I think it's one of the reasons why I got allowed to come back as well, because it was kind of like a mistake, sort of. So I don't know is the ultimate answer. I wish I did know, but I do know that I knew up there. And by the way, I don't on purpose listen to other people's near-death experiences because I want to sort of keep in my lane, if you will. But my sense is that everybody's near-death experience is designed uniquely for them to feel safe and secure and go through the process of that. I just think we're supposed to feel ushered in. However, like the birthing process here, some births are more traumatic than others. So if you think about you dying in this life, the baby fetus of you dies to itself as it's born through the birth canal and gets, it's opening its eyes in this world. Same thing. When you go through the birth canal of the death process and you die to your body and you awaken to this light body, I think that some people's process is more traumatic than others. So that's my current thought on it, just having experienced it myself.
So many questions. In and around there, you're at some point going to come back to your body, and you're in this space. You could have stayed in this healing dimension. Is it the bardos? Is it the astral plane? I'm not sure. I'm not sure much around what the bardos are, but I've heard about the term being referenced. But you mentioned the astral plane. You said you could have stayed there had you chosen to, but then you chose to come back. So can you describe us a little bit around the integration of Alysa's spirit coming back into her body?
Yeah, so I did choose to come back, and the minute that I did, what it felt like was somebody dropping me off a 1,000-story building and just slamming me into the concrete. It was such a huge, like, wham, I got slammed into my body, and it felt so hard and so heavy. And for me, that's one of the big things I talk about is there's such a vibrational difference between our spirit light body selves and being here on earth. It's so heavy and so dense down here. It's just the same thing as if I took you down 1,000 feet into the ocean, it's so heavy and so dense that you would implode, right? You would. So the same thing is true down here. It's very heavy. It's very dense. It's hard for higher spiritual dimensional beings to be down here because of that very nature. It's so heavy and so dense. You need a different vehicle for it, right? Just like you need a different vehicle. If you're going to go down 1,000 feet in the ocean, you need a different vehicle. So yeah, it's a really dense plane down here. And so for me, I just felt this huge, like all the pain came back, all the heaviness, all the trauma, all the drama came back instantly. And, I was, because they had injected me with Narcan, right, to block all the drugs in my system. So I went into instant withdrawal. I'm kicking and flailing. This is somebody who scoots around on a little walker, and now I'm flailing, arms and legs. They got me strapped down. And, that was the point when I and all my consciousness was back because all the drugs were instantly out of my system. And I realized my life is broken. And what I'm doing to fix my life is killing me. And so, that's a big awakening and awareness to have. You come back to that, like, oh, your life is totally broken. What you're doing is killing you. You have to do something different. And that's what I woke up to. That's what I came back to once I was, fully back. And, it was a very enlightening thing, but also a hard thing because I had a long road ahead of me, a long road of getting off drugs that they don't put you on, you know, I was on fentanyl suckers. Those things can kill you just by touching them, right? If a caregiver touches one, it can soak into you and kill you. So I was on 6 of those bad boys a day.
And also at
So I
some point, you were still being prescribed these medications after you'd returned.
Yes.
And you voluntarily started weaning yourself off almost somewhat secretly from your caregivers.
I did. I was afraid, especially the doctor that I was seeing at the time. She was real big on keep you medicated, keep you drugged, keep you, you know. And before my death, I was for that. I was like, yeah, give me more drugs. I want more drugs. I would seek that. After my death, I was like, let me get off the drugs. And I discussed it with her, but I could tell that she was not on board with that. And so I secretly started weaning down and weaning down and weaning down and weaning down and, you know, just got myself off the drugs, which I think was beneficial for me because I had to then do the trauma healing work. You can't be that much of an addict, right, to all the things and not do the trauma healing work because otherwise you just go back to being an addict.
Right. Trippy big question. Do you think, given what's your awareness around, was this, because people generally have Saturn's return around the age of 27 to the age of 30, and then again in the next 30-year cycle. And, you know, we lose a lot of great musicians to the world around this age as well. How much of this experience, well, looking at the work you do today, maybe this is a redundant question, how much of this work is a part of your purpose? But then also zooming out, like it does beg questions around destiny a little bit. Like, do you think you were always meant to have this reset from before, like it's almost like a soul print, spirit print before coming here, before you were incarnated? Or, yeah, your thoughts around that? I know it's a bit of a trippy question.
I love this question because when I was in my 20s, I had palm reading, and the reader said, you may die when you're 30. And I did. I died at 30. She's like, or you could live a really long life. And what I believe to my core is that we have the choice of what timelines we roll out in this lifetime. So just because something's in your soul print, for example, my father was a speaker when he grew up. He actually was working for Billy Graham at one point in time. He was supposed to be the next Billy Graham and was training to do that. And he fell out of the program. Okay. So that's in my DNA to be speaking and teaching on spiritual things, right? It's in the DNA and part of my soul print to do that as well. What I believe is that we have choice about how that soul print rolls out, depending on what vibration we're on. So had I been more attuned spiritually, had I been eating more healthfully, had I been, you know, in the practice of being in a different frequency, I don't believe I would have had to die.
Wow. Very interesting. Very interesting.
I think I could have done it. I think I would be doing all the same things just without the need to, you know,
have gone through such an intense reboot.
Yeah, exactly. However, having gone through such an intense reboot, one of the benefits of that, and I think this is really important for people to hear, the healing process is creative. It requires you to go deep and change some fundamental aspects of yourself. And that's why we're being given the healing process. And so if you can remember, if you're in a healing process, it's creative. It's trying to help you to really go deep and clear out some things and heal from within and heal from without as well. And it's asking you to make shifts and changes in your life and align to something different that your soul's actually calling you to. And if we can just remember that about the healing process, and as we watch our fellow brothers and sisters on this planet if we can remember that when they're in that hard moment, or when they're going through something that we think they shouldn't be going through, or whatever it is, that they too are in that beautiful creative process, and that they're being called forward. Now, will they listen to the call? I don't know. That's the biggest piece. Are people waking up more than ever right now? Yes, they are. I had a 65-year-old man come up to me the other day to tell me, I think I'm a light worker and I think you can help me, and that's new. I had a woman, I had dinner with a woman the other night, and she said, I was swimming and I felt this entity on me. And, she was right. I mean, I had met her 3 days before, and I saw a lot of entity action on her. And I just thought, oh, that's interesting. And then she's an older lady, and she came and told me this, like, I'm trying to clear this entity off myself. So all that to say, people are getting a lot more consciousness downloads than ever before, and they're waking up to new ways of thinking about themselves, their placement in the universe, what we've been told about our nature of reality, because we have not been told so much. There's so much that's been hidden from us as human beings that we do not understand. And right now we're in a time of a global reboot, right? I had my own reboot. We're in a time of a global reboot, and it's never an easy process. It's not. But what's on the other side of that process, I think, is nothing short of miraculous.
I heard you say somewhere that there's almost like meant to be like 1 billion people waking up 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe the nature of that? That sounds like a lot. It's inspiring, but it's also like, whoa, there's a lot of work going on. Can you describe that a little bit? Yeah.
How I see this is I see many people already in process, kind of like the woman that came up to me on the beach the other day and said, I think I have an entity, right? She's in her wake up process. So for some people, it's going to happen. They're just going to get into the ocean and they're going to have a moment of clarity. For some people, they're going to get, dare I say, into an accident and they're going to have that moment of clarity. For some people, it's going to be a financial meltdown that they go through that's going to give them that moment of awakening that, oh, this isn't real. Like, this system that I believe in isn't real. I don't have to be a part of this system anymore. They're going to go through that moment, maybe a health crisis where the system that they've been in doesn't serve them and they have to do some different things. So I see this happening not as one moment for all mankind. I see this happening on the daily basis, person by person, bit by bit, circumstance by circumstance, as it happens.
A lot of what you're describing, and I'm sure it's not universal that everybody's transforming through challenge, but I want to say the majority are, even though I don't want to actually say that. Your experience of that, like the nature of challenge and transformation, the kind of breakdown to breakthrough, and yeah, I always find myself asking this question, why does it have to be that way? And maybe that's just from a place of compassion or a place of fear. I'm still maybe a bit of both. But yeah, the breakdown to breakthrough and all this collective shift that's happening. Just the nature of challenge and around there as a necessary ingredient, and for how to best navigate that for the individual.
Yeah, I have questioned this a million times, if not more, myself. And my question always is, can we grow through joy? Can we grow through eating papaya and berries on the beach? Can we, I met a man in 2017 who really changed my world in many ways. And we had so many days eating papaya and berries on the beach, swimming, diving down in the ocean, the magic of life. And I have to be really honest and say that there was not a lot of growth there. There's a lot of pleasure, a lot of amazingness, but the growth wasn't there. And I am given the vision of muscles, and I'm being shown right now this person in the gym, like really building their muscles, and they're showing me how the muscles break and tear apart. And then in the regrowth, they get stronger. It's the wabi-sabi. right? Do you know, I wabi-sabi'd myself. Wabi-sabi is when you break a vase and you put it back together with gold, and it's a different shape, but it's stronger than ever. And I
And it's
think we're
considered
going
even
through
more beautiful for all the cracks and the linings.
Yes.
And brings to mind that Rumi quote where the light is where, the cracks are where the light gets in, sort of thing. Yeah, touch wood.
Yes. It's where we infuse ourselves with that gold and that light. And so I so hear you on the not wanting to grow through challenge. And it's when we wabi-sabi ourselves. It's when we have those challenges that we actually refortify ourselves. In fact, I talked early on about how, I've recently gone through this whole new health challenge. You know what? I thought after my near-death experience, I thought, I'll never be sick again. I eat so clean. I eat so healthy. I am so over. I'm never going to get a virus. I am never going to get the flu. I am never going to get anything. I'm amazing. Is really what I thought inside. I drink enough green juice, taking enough supplements. Nothing's going to happen to me. But guess what? It did. And so through that process of me really having to go back and dig deep, I've had to dig deeper even than I did the first time around, if that's possible. And I didn't think it was possible. And I've had to dig deeper and get more resourceful and do even more trauma healing. And in the process of doing that, what I have then been shown and seen is that we actually have the ability to regenerate ourselves. We have the ability to regenerate our bodies. Look, geckos can do it. They can grow a whole new tail. Why can't we regenerate? The only reason why we can't is because we've been told and it's been imprinted in us that we cannot. And so what I've been going through this last 2 years is this process of regeneration and learning how to pull that frequency through of regeneration so that we don't necessarily have to cut on the body. If you think about the time when we used to do bloodletting, remember bloodletting back in the medieval times? That's how we cured the body. Sometimes we killed the body, but yeah, we'd slice open a vein and let out all this blood, and that would, heal you or kill you. And so now we're in the place where, as human beings, we cut on the body, right? We cut on the body to heal the body. So it's a very archaic way of healing. So what I can see for the future human is a different way. It's a frequency medicine way, bringing through frequencies of instantaneous healing, allowing the body to rejuvenate itself, bringing in frequency that helps the body to kick out stuff that it has. For example, if you had a big kidney stone, they are not going to cut it out now. They're going to use sound frequency to blast that kidney stone so that you can pass it through the body. So we're graduating as human beings, and we're coming up in our consciousness into new ways of handling old stuff. And that's one of the biggest pieces that we're pulling through. We're learning how to do it differently, but these things take time. I see it taking about 4 generations.
When you zoom out, that's actually pretty fast.
Right.
It's It's really trippy right now as you're describing this. I'm having the visual image of that band that you were describing, humanity and Earth and our consciousness, or sort of our reality exists on, and sort of the work that we're potentially doing to awaken ourselves sort of collectively, and the band sort of shifting upwards because, and I know upwards is a relative term, but nonetheless sort of shifting upwards so that some of these technologies which are less dense, like you described bloodletting, can actually be made of avail to us because our collective frequency is increasing, and then we can actually tap further into frequency medicine as a collective.
Amrit, I couldn't have said it better myself.
That's
exactly it. Yeah, it's exactly it. Like, as I couldn't have said it better myself. As we rise, we get access to more things that are less dense, that are more helpful. Just like as we rise in our frequency here on the planet, you may have run into a person that was going to harm you that day, but as you rise in your frequency, if you run into that same person, they have to be different around you, right? And so you don't have the same bad thing happen. So we are learning collectively to raise our frequency, and we have more high frequency people on this planet than ever before. It is such a huge opportunity right now. And again, down here on planet Earth, even though there is no such thing as time, it takes time here, right? That fourth dimension of time.
Yeah. So zooming back into that, because you've also mentioned on the other side, time doesn't exist, but here as part of the human experience, time is very linear. And you discussed healing before, and you're mentioning that you're currently going through a healing journey as well. So can you describe a little bit around, I know the term quantum gets used quite loosely here, but, nonetheless, in the quantum, it's that dimension where time doesn't exist actually. And so it's very fitting as in terms of us trying to articulate something that is quite nebulous. The quantum nature of time and potentially how that awareness of the past and the future all existing in this eternal now, if you will, how that can support healing practices, or even how you help others, because it's a big part of your work, right? Helping others heal through some of their traumatic experience. Can you describe that a little bit deeper, please?
Yeah. So when I'm working with a client, let's say, for example, so much of our now experience is linked up with different stuff. And it's usually linked up with our childhood here, our DNA, our past, present, future, concurrent lives. And so when it's linked up with that, what we then got to do if we really wanted to heal is go connect and pull those pieces in through our consciousness and then work to untwist those threads basically and work to heal. And when we recognize that if we're here and we're healing this strand here and this strand here, and we're setting our conscious intention, right? Then it goes and heals. What happens for most people is they don't know to set their conscious intention. And this is best illustrated by a story. I was driving through a parking lot with my mom, big parking lot. We were going to the GEM show in Tucson. We go every year. It's the biggest show, one of the biggest shows on the planet. Okay. And mom says, we are not going to get a parking space. And I looked at her and she she's like a manifester. And I'm like, well, not with an attitude like that. And I said, let's call, right? No, you're not with that attitude, girl. And so I said, let's call on the angels and let's ask for a super magical parking spot that also makes a great story, right? So we're setting our intention. We're calling on the energy to go before us and provide, right? By the way, this is a tip for you for your life. Like, call on the energy to go before you and provide. Your consciousness wants to provide for you. And so we call in the energy and it's a huge line. We get to the guy to give him our money and we give him our $10 for parking. And he's like, there's no parking. But you're welcome to go and try. And we're like, okay. So we go and there's this huge line of cars in front of us. And I just hear, you need to slow down. So I really slow down. There's a big long line in front of us of a gap. And mom's like, catch up to those guys. I'm like, whatever. I'm not listening to you at this point. And so as I'm driving just right by the front door of the GEM show, mom's like, stop. And this woman starts to back out. And we're like 20 feet away from the front door and there's a parking space right there. And she's like, oh my God, can you believe it? I said, yes, Mom, because we called in the energy. She's like, this is a miracle, But here's the thing. When it comes to, that's parking spaces, but when it comes to healing, your consciousness, God consciousness, divine consciousness, all it's wanting is for you to understand that it's everywhere and that if you use your consciousness and direct it, that's when you can have the true miracles and the magic, and you can go back and heal. I've seen this so many times with people that they have a family member they just can't get along with. Their family member's horrible, and all of the things. And then they go and they do the inner healing work oh, lo and behold, that family member is a changed person. Right? Because it's happening when we set our intention, it's happening on this massive quantum scale. We are all connected, but people forget that. And so when they go and do their inner healing work, they're not setting the intention to infuse that healing out in all directions. And even now, okay, let's say that I'm dealing with a gallbladder situation right now, right? I'm trying to heal my gallbladder. If I just try to heal it for me, I'm losing the possibility and the potential that I have to set my intention to radiate this healing out to all beings, right? That they have the healthiest, most vital, vibrant version of their gallbladder, right? So as you lift up in consciousness, you realize you're not just your body, you're all beings all at once. And what you're doing for you in your vehicle, you can direct that energy outward. Whether you like it or not, it's going outward. So why not use the energy for good, right? Why not take the opportunity as you're healing something to just command that energy? I command this healing energy for myself and all other beings who are having this issue, right? Amplify the frequency of healing and direct it out, because we feel like we are not connected to the counter over there or the person over there because
Localized.
we're totally localized. We see separation. And in truth, under a microscope at the subatomic level, in the field, you are connected to everything. And every thought you think and every action you take actually ripples out and matters. And that's, I think, what's the hardest thing to cognize as a human being, but also to make a daily practice of as a human being, because we get frustrated, we get upset, we have these natural human emotions. And that's the mastery lesson here, right? Mastering our emotions and our physical body.
And I think one of the other things is that a lot of the times the emotions are triggered by this sense of separation and by the other. We sort of blame the other. And so it's like, I'm definitely not over there. I'm over here. There's this visual experience of like, that over there triggered me over here. I am not that. I am this. And then you end up in this further localized experience. It's very trippy to imagine yourself going through something that you need to heal. And then, yeah, I think the natural sort of mental process is to then close in on oneself, back to where you even described, you know, the grey cubicle of death. Like the sort of shame aspect of things invites us to sort of contract in and around the things that we're going through. And yet here you are inviting us to open further into, hey, like this is happening for me, but also it's happening collectively. Let's go there. Let's do the shift. It's quite profound in somewhat of the courage, but also the reversal of the natural. Feels like rubbing the cat the wrong way for the mind. But one of the questions I've got that leads in from there is, as you're doing it for the good of others, there's this massive connotation of service. Do you believe that, and this is going to sound somewhat for the ego to be selfish around, but nonetheless, if we can just park that for a sec, do you think more energy arrives as you're trying to work on the energetics of what's going on in your field on a larger scale because you're calling in a greater ripple? Did I ask that question right?
I love that question. I think it's an expansive question. I think what's cool is that there's an infinite amount of energy all the time to use. And so I don't know if a greater amount comes through or not, but you're casting the net wider, I guess. So anytime you're setting that intention for somebody else to heal and up a level as well, I call it the twin up process. In fact, a lot of my clients will say, hey, will you twin up with me on this? You know, can we twin up on this? Because, you know, you see this in the Bible, right? When two or more are gathered. And so as we twin up, as we recognize that the person who's triggering me and I'm telling myself I'm frustrated because they are making me frustrated, they're the ones No, they're the ones who are showing me frustration lives inside of me as my first programmed response to stress stimuli, right? They're showing me that emotion lives inside of me still. And so I'm going to set my intention to heal that and have a different first programmed response, right? The computer's frustrating me. It's not working. No, the computer is showing you that how you react to things not working the way you want is frustration and stress. And you can remap that in your body. And as you do, sending that ripple effect out to people. I do think that there's a free will aspect of this, though, that I want to touch on. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't. As you're doing healing work for yourself and you're setting the intention that that ripple out to people, we still do, as the individuated soul, right, as the individuated aspect of light, have free will. And so what I don't want people to feel is like nervous or scared that they're going to send out this ripple effect and adversely impact somebody's free will. Because at the energetic level, somebody's energy body or their soul body will either choose to take that healing and run with it, or they won't. Right? You have free will at soul level. You have free will at energetic body level. So you will either choose to take that energy and run with it or not. You know, it's just like someone coming to ask you if you need some help. You can say yes, or you can say no. It's no different. So don't feel scared or nervous if you're hearing me talk about sending this energetic, broadcast out wider, because you're not going to encroach on people's free will. But it's like offering a hand. It's like, hey, do you need a hand here? There's a little extra energy. Would you like to take my hand and cross this bridge? And some people are going to take that hand, energetic hand, and some people are not.
Profound. There's zooming out from the individual. Let's talk a little bit around the collective healing that's currently going on. There's a collective shift that's currently going on. You talk about sort of monad consciousness and the divine. There's so many open portals that we can dive into this wider conversation of where we are right now. I'll leave it to you to guide us through how you would like to share that with us.
Yeah, so let's talk about the consciousness on the planet right now. There's really some different consciousnesses, and ultimately what I feel is that we're in a time, if you believe in the yugas, are you a yuga believer? These cycles, these larger cycles of the universe.
I'm Indian by nature, so it's not a belief. It is. Sorry. But yes, we believe. Sorry.
Yes. No, that's great. Exactly. I love that. I want to come back to that because we are in these larger cycles, and we are breaking free of an extraordinarily difficult cycle that we have gone through as human beings of separation, domination. I call it victim-victor consciousness, where you're either going to be the victim or you're going to be the victor, and that's how we deal with that. And we're breaking free of that. We're coming back around to understanding that we are divine in physical form. And I want to say that our history books do not talk about what was before this cycle. Many of our religious texts don't really talk about what was before this cycle. In cyclical times, if you believe in alternate...
Of course they don't. Sorry.
Right. They just talk about the start of... You're having an aha.
Because even the Mahabharata even the Mahabharata and everything in like the Hindu, like everyone says, oh, it's a fantastical story, but Hindus believe that actually it's the story of that's our history. It's not our story. Like it's not a story like of divinity. It's actually our history from from the earlier yugas. But then as you're describing it right now, I'm realizing, oh, what about the stories from the previous? And I'm like, oh yeah, we don't have those. Oh yeah, right. Okay, sorry. Full on aha moment. Had it out loud. Pardon me. Please continue.
I love it because if you read the Bibles, if you read the Quran or the Torah or the Kabbalah or any text, I would challenge a person to tell me that it started before our cycle. It's not reported. It's been cleaned out. We're not allowed to see what happened before us, really. Right? And so if you understand that what we're going through as a society right now is waking up to knowledge that there were many civilizations before us in our reported history. And in these civilizations, they had gifts and skills and talents and all of these things that we too have access to. And we have to go back in and turn them on. And that's our job now, is to go back in and turn them on, because they got turned off through beliefs and ideologies, right? And we can literally, you can see it under a microscope. You can turn DNA on and off through your beliefs. If you believe that you're going to die of cancer, you will. If you believe that you won't, and you believe it hard enough, you will not. If you just got paralyzed in an accident and you believe that that's it for you and that's what is going to happen and that you're going to be in a wheelchair the rest of your life, that is your destiny. If you believe, no way, I am not allowing this, I'm going to choose something different and I'm going to work and I'm going to visualize and I'm going to do all the things, guess what? You're walking again. And so we can activate our DNA based on our beliefs and our thoughts, and also the foods that we put into our bodies. I mean, make no mistake, the food you put into your body is activating your DNA or deactivating your DNA. And I talk about this a lot. Like, if you want a clear channel, if you want all your skills, your psychic gifts and skills and talents to be able to do awesome things, you can't really be eating at McDonald's, right? You can't be a McDonald's eater and have like this super access, because you got too much static in your channel, right? That static chemical is going to come through and kind of muck with your system and lower your vibration. So as a collective right now, we are waking up to the fact that there were these yogic cycles before us that we didn't get accurate information on, and that can teach us how to be differently. And I feel like we are trying to become like galactic citizens versus global citizens, because we're so into like, and I live in America, so it's like America, and Russia and Ukraine. And to me, it's so ridiculous, because we're on one planet. We're on one planet. We share it together. We should be stewarding. I hate to shit on people, but stewarding the land and stewarding each other versus like, I own this. This is mine. It's such an old way of being, and it's such a world-centric way of being versus a galactic way of being. And I believe that we're trying to graduate into being a galactic citizen. Citizens who are able to participate in the galaxy, but right now we cannot, because we're so firmly entrenched in our beliefs that really come from 2,000 years ago of, that's mine, this is yours, you stay over there, let me build this fence and we'll all be happy. So it's a very much a process.
Well, even one of the picker parts in there comes, a low-hanging fruit is one of the earlier parts of this conversation when you were discussing regeneration and just how you were tuning that into your own cellular sort of, like, that was coming in from your consciousness in terms of like, there is a future where regeneration is available to us, instead of, use the example of bloodletting, and then, recognizing that on a planetary level, like, we're learning that same lesson for the planet at the moment. It's like sustainability was this archaic conversation almost. It emerged for 30 years and it's already like past its use by date, where it's like sustainability just means longevity of practices that no longer actually work and just trying to get the best out of, eke the best out of those, whereas regeneration is what's emerging, and it opens up this sort of spiral loop of as within, so without, as we do the work within, it is actually a mirror. And it does leave some sort of questioning around, you know, what's happening first. Is it happening out there and it's being reflected within, or if it's being reflected within and going without? And I'm conscious as I'm saying that, again, the illusion of separation is ever present in the nature of that exploration. And of course, the symptomology of it is all one and it's all happening together. Sorry, I've interrupted your exploration of what's collectively going on in consciousness at the moment, because it's very inspirational to feel that we are on a shift, especially given the challenges that we're facing individually. And then also you look at, you know, the current state of the world, and there's a lot of war and a lot of stuff going on. And then to recognize that potentially there is a breakdown going through in order to break through.
Yeah. Well, I want to draw on something you said, because I love how you brought this forward, that we have to start asking the question. And by the way, how change happens globally happens individually first, right? As much as we're looking something on the outside to change what's happening, we've got to bring it back to us. Like, what can I do? So if you start asking yourself the question, is this drink that I'm drinking good for myself? Yes. Is it? It's likely good for the planet. Is this food that I'm eating good for myself and nourishing? Then it's likely also good for the planet. I was eating these little fruit bars, and they've got 2 ingredients in them, berries and apples, and that's it. They're like dried fruit. But every time I eat them, I feel really not good. And they're not organic. And then I started thinking, these are probably sprayed with pesticides. That's probably why, because my nervous system does not, like, after my near-death experience, my nervous system is like really finely tuned. It does not accept chemicals. It just does not. So I'm thinking, well, that's probably why I don't feel good. And so if something doesn't feel good for us, in terms of it doesn't fuel us, it's not good for our body, it's not going to be also good for the planet, right? Spraying down things with chemicals isn't good for our planet. And we just haven't really thought about that dynamic nature of, is this good for the planet? We don't ask the questions of, hey, land, this piece of land, would you like us to build here? You know, I live in Hawaii. We have these practices here, though. They haven't gone away. We talk to the land. Would you like us to build here? If so, how so? How would you like this dwelling to be situated? How would you like this to be built? Now, obviously, not everybody does this here, but it is a practice that is more in the culture here. Blessing the land, asking for the land to bless the dwelling is very big in this culture. If you don't do it, you usually run into building problems that stretch out the building process 10 years or more, because it's like living on the world's largest crystal here. You know, it just amplifies everything. So if we start to do that internally with ourselves every day, asking ourselves the question, is this good for me? Is what I'm doing really good for me? And then you stretch it out, then you start to weave the threads, and then you start to unplug yourself from some of the things that are not good for the planet, right? Like, even let's say you stopped, you asked yourself, is watching soap operas with all these commercials about, you know, every commercial is for drugs to buy, pharmaceuticals or food, or something else, right? So if you stopped watching that TV show, then you're not contributing dollars to the pharmaceutical companies and the advertisements for some of these addictive products, and you're pulling your energy back. And pretty soon, enough people do that, and it's going to unravel the threads of that even being a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a little remark about Hawaii. I remember when I went there, I met some really incredible elders, and yeah, just the way they even, just like the energetics is such a common part of the everyday vernacular. Like, it's just ridiculous to be there, and it's just like, oh yeah, like they'd say things like, "You are truly welcome here," and it's like, what do you mean? It's like, are you Indian? It's like, yeah, and it's like, you get it. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, whereas, yeah, just the dynamics around, you know, if you're not meant to be here, you know, you'll know at the airport, like, your luggage won't arrive. it's a really, yeah, it's a really special place. You mentioned your nervous system has this awareness post near-death experience, and in there, one of the questions that I've got is, I guess I'm familiar with your work, so I know the answer to this question, but I think it's worth the exploration of just how fine-tuned things have become for you and what sort of opened up on the other side of the near-death experience in terms of, I don't want to call them psychic abilities, but in terms of your extrasensory perceptions, let's call it that. I think that's a pretty grounded place to explore it. Can you describe some of the stuff that goes on for you that's just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me start off by saying I don't think there's anything special about me. I actually think everybody has these abilities. Every single person. In fact, I have a whole academy where I teach people how to do this. And it's so cool because we had a lawyer come into the academy and she was thinking, I'm probably not going to get a whole lot out of this, but I'm just going to try. And now she channels angels and she's having, discussions with the gathering, right? She's able to sense and see. She picked up her whole life, moved to Bali. She's living a whole different life now. So I do want to say there's nothing special about me. You don't have to die to access these skills. That was just my path. And you can take a class and turn on all these skills. It's just a thing. So for me, though, I can, all my extrasensory perceptions turned on. So my smelling is incredible. I can smell something miles away and I smell all the layers of it. It's sort of, I imagine it's what a German Shepherd experiences. It can be a real gift and also not a real gift.
I can imagine.
If you know what I'm saying. Yes. Same thing. I can see frequency. Right? So I can look at a picture of somebody, whether it's in front of me or on a piece of paper. I can know what kind of drugs they're doing. I can know what kind of disease process is going in the body. So I can see that frequency happening, which again is also a gift and sometimes not a gift, because when you know a lot of that information, I just can't go around and dump that on somebody. It's not appropriate, right? I can't go up to somebody and say, did you know? Did you know this?
Permission is a sacred key. Yeah.
Yes. So it's a gift and not a gift. But I believe that everybody has this. Now, my theory on activating this is that the more people that tap into all the sensory perceptions that we have, you have to be clear, right? If you know that all your friends can see through you completely, right? They know what kind of drugs you're doing. They know what you're watching on your phone. They know what they know everything. It requires you to be clear. And that's part of what's happening with our society, by the way, with other civilizations, other civilizations in our past, other ET civilizations. They're already there. They can already, telepathy is a thing. So, oftentimes I will know what people are going to tell me before they tell me. I can read thoughts oftentimes. So again, it requires us to be very clear and precise and mindful about our vehicle and what we're allowing to go run rampant in our vehicle. And that's what I can do, but it's what everybody can do once they learn how to tune into those things that are already there. And there's a process, right? It's tough when all of a sudden you can see so deeply into things, and there's a process of evolution that happens for people, a boundary process. They have to really get good with boundaries. They have to get really good with what they take in from the outside world, right? I'm sure there's so many empaths listening to this. When we're feeling depleted, when you go outside in a group or a crowd, that's because you talked about the Taurus field, our Taurus field of energy. Most people on this planet suck in energy from the top and they bring it down through their system and then they put it out, especially the empaths listening to this call. You guys are great about taking in that energy, cleaning it up for people unconsciously, right? You're doing what I talked about sending that energy out on a global scale. You're already doing it unconsciously. So what we want to do instead is we want to reverse the torus field and we want to create that ball of God energy, that divine energy, that Christ consciousness, so big, so bright in here first, and cascade it outward, that we're not in taking other people's data, emotions, feelings, and we're projecting that God consciousness outward. And that's healing for us, it's healing for other people, and allows that boundary of I don't need to come up and tell you that you've got kidney problems, right? Or whatever it is that person's experiencing.
The toroidal field reverse is going through your root chakra first as opposed to coming in through your crown. Is that what you're describing there, or have I interpreted it incorrectly?
I see it as heart chakra instead of coming in through your crown. Yeah. So most people, when they go out, and solar plexus, right? They'll either go solar plexus and root and like suck up everybody's stuff through their solar plexus and root, or they'll do it. It just depends on how you're wired, or they'll do it through the crown. But either way, they're taking on people's energy unconsciously so they can cleanse, clear, and heal it. And then they release it back to the people, but they go away feeling drained and exhausted. Versus building a ball of God, divine, Christ, whatever you want to call that consciousness, so big, so bright inside of yourself that it goes outward. You don't then pick up people's stuff. It's like this, the sunshine. The sunshine doesn't ever worry about a planet taking its light. The sunshine just shines and gives warmth. And so when you activate your internal sun, right? When you activate that internal sunshine, your own solar system, right? Then you don't worry about anyone taking your light. You don't worry about anyone sucking you dry because you're so big and so bright. You're radiating so much God light, divine light, that you walk around and people will tell you still like, oh, I feel better in your presence. Oh my gosh, I feel so good when you're around. The caveat is you don't feel depleted. You don't feel exhausted. You don't take on their stuff to heal.
A lot of the discernment in that space probably lives within intuition. Am I pointing the finger to the right place somewhat? I'm shooting also back into the part of the conversation where you were looking for that park and you had a voice to slow down when you were going to the Crystal Fair. And there's that sort of, hey, slow down. And your mum's like, hey, hurry up. And you're like, nah, not right now. Yeah, listening to your guides, the intuition is a big part of it, would you say?
Yeah, through this process, I mean, we're all given such great guidance, but we have to be present to listen to it. And there's a process that I went through, and I remember this so deeply. When I first came back and I was learning, I had to learn to drive again. Okay. And that's a weird thing, having to learn to read again and drive again. And I was learning to drive again, and I'm driving along and I heard this voice and it was like, whatever you do, don't go that way. Don't turn that way. And that was the moment that I had to stop and realize that's the voice of fear. What does my intuition sound like? And I think that's a big thing for people, is learning the difference between what the voice of fear sounds like versus what the voice of intuition sounds like. Intuition's going to sound like, it's okay to slow down. Intuition's going to sound like, hey, this might be coming up, or hey, get ready for this, whatever it is. Intuition's never that crazy backseat driver going, don't do that, like whatever you do. And so if you can always remember to tune in, and if you feel any fear with the guidance, that's not your guidance. That's either a negative entity or it's fear. which I would also say is a negative entity, right? So really taking a look at that and then asking if you are getting fearful guidance, to ask intuition, my highest self, divine light, show me what my real intuition sounds like. Give me a direct experience of that. Because here's the thing, and we touched on this before, but I definitely want to bring it back around to this, is that you are God consciousness in a body, and your consciousness trumps everything. And so when you ask for something, you can receive it. And when you ask for guidance from your highest self, from divine consciousness, you will start to get that direct experience. And really remembering that you can command energy. I have this audio where I talk people through commanding the energy. And I'll do this with clients who are traveling, and I'll say to them, okay, I'll say, do this with me. Angels, guides, my higher self, go before me today and pave the entire way with magic and miracles beyond my wildest dreams. And then just go about your day knowing that that energy is preceding you, and watch for just the most incredible things to happen. And you'll run into amazing people, and all sorts of yummy things will happen for you. And even if you run into a weird, funky travel situation, it's just been handled for you. And so really bringing yourself back in this moment of remembering that you are divine consciousness here in physical form. And the more you remember that, the more you own it and claim it, not from the ego space, but from the place of, I'm allowing divine consciousness to flow to me and through me at all times throughout this day. And just watch what happens in your life when you tap back into that space. I had a teacher once tell me, as many times as you can get there, it's like adding a little diamond to your necklace, and see how many diamonds you can put on your necklace of consciousness, of being present in connection as God consciousness, divine consciousness coming as and through you each day, like you were adding these beautiful diamonds to a necklace. And just watch what happens.
Alysa, for those who want to tune in deeper into your work, what's the best place for them to find you?
Oh gosh. Well, the best place is to go to raiseyourvibrationtoolkit.com. We got an awesome free toolkit for you to dive into with a lot of the things that we talked about today, the commandments, the connecting in. So yeah, they can totally check that out.
Sister Bear. Wow. I could totally thank you for today's conversation, and I will. This is my, I will say, half-hearted. It's fully hearted. But it feels lame compared to just to say, oh, thanks for how generously and abundantly you've just shared yourself here with us. Wow. But I thank you. And also, just acknowledging you for just being so open, so transparent, sharing yourself so openly and generously here with us today, and also acknowledging the entire experience of this particular incarnation that you've been through with life, and to go away, to come back and be able to share things so richly. It's just so enriching. So just really, really honoring you and just grateful for you being you, and then also sharing yourself so abundantly here with us today, sister. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me. I could talk to you for hours. This has been fabulous. So thank you for having me.
Hey, your Inspired Tribe. I want to take a quick sec. I wanted to share something today with you that is really dear to my heart, and it's actually what keeps the entire ecosystem around the Inspired Evolution thriving, my one-on-one coaching. So it's basically coaching that helps you live a spiritually aligned life. I coach people from all different types of walks of life. These people are leaders, and they're looking to have an incredible spiritual impact in the lives that they're leading for themselves, and then also lead in alignment to their values. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. Here's a few people that have also transformed through my coaching, and here's what they have to say.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines. And
he's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing.
Then my corporate banking job wasn't really doing it.
You feel like you're not making progress towards your goals.
And Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
I'm more in control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate because you won't be disappointed.
As you guys can see, there's a lot of people all over the world from all these different corners experiencing incredible transformations. I don't think, if I can say humbly myself, that there is anything quite like this somewhere else online. Most people that, have channels that, grow and grow and grow don't really focus on one-to-one offerings. I have just found that it is the most profound space where you can bring yourself in a private container and really just share what's going on for yourself. And if you want to book in for that call with me, touch base, it's www.amrit.coach/life. That's www.amrit.coach/LIFE. There is a link in the show notes below to book in that call. And yeah, if you want to take your journey further, if you want to dive in deeper and you really want to live a spiritually aligned life, if it's for you, please do check it out. And without too much further ado, once again, for your spirit, for yourself, today's podcast. Guys, you made it all the way through to the end of another episode. I'm so inspired by your inspiration to evolve. It is such an honor to be your brother walking by your side. Now, if you love this conversation, please don't forget to hit that like button, smash it, leave a comment below, and please do subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with all the goodness that's flowing, touch wood, around here. Now, if you love this conversation with Alysa, we have another conversation with Pim van Lamel. He studied over 100, dare I say, approaching 1,000 near-death experiences, and he has distilled all of his scientific understandings from researching the other side and people that have been through experiences similar to Alyssa's and collated them all, and we did an episode with him, and that is on screen for you to check out now. There's also another couple of episodes curated perfectly for you to check out now on screen as well to continue your journey to stay inspired and keep evolving. And I will see you in the next one.